Hey everybody, welcome to our second workshop. My name's Garrett. I'm the founder of Ambition in Motion. I'm so happy, I'm so excited, I'm so grateful to have you here for our second workshop. I am pumped for you to experience our guest speaker later on this evening. But before we get started, I want to touch up on a couple of quick points. So you are starting your mentor relationship. That is awesome. Hopefully you've had your first conversation. I'd love to learn about it. Post maybe about some of the key talking points that you've had for your first meeting in the comment section. Would love to learn about how that first meeting has gone. But yeah, this workshop's all about how to network in a genuine way and really make the most out of it. This workshop should be about an hour long. As a reminder, I'm going to ask you 3 questions during the duration of this workshop. Once we have asked those questions, I'll expect you to answer them. That's how you get credit for participating and being here at the workshops. I'm really excited for you to experience our guest speaker tonight. I'm really excited to dive into this. Now, this is what's really key. I mean, genuine networking is such a pivotal component to building rapport, to getting job offers, to getting promotions. Really, if you can hone this skill, if you can hone this ability, you will be set professionally, because ultimately, at the end of the day, your hard skills, that being your ability to crunch numbers, to do some form of engineering, to do some form of science, like all those things are pretty good. They're very easy to measure. So it's very clear whether or not you are better or worse than somebody on a hard skill. But your soft skills are much more difficult to measure. But those soft skills are really what's going to set you apart. I mean, as they say, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And this is the workshop about how you can know more people and have a stronger bond with them, because then it goes to your reputation. Because if you have a reputation for treating people like garbage, you're not going to have a great reputation. People are going to want to help connect you with other people. If you come in with low energy, if you come in with a bad state, if you come in talking trash about other people, you're not going to put yourself in a good position. And so I want to be very clear. When it comes to networking, when it comes to building a relationship, it is not all about the transaction. If you're coming into a networking situation, you're thinking to yourself, what is in it for me? You are not going to have a positive outcome. I promise you on that. I really want to be clear. It's not all about landing the job or the internship. Sometimes it's about building the relationship and then playing the long game, because ultimately that may turn into an opportunity because they built a rapport with you. But if you burn them, or if you make them feel like you are using them to get to a location that you would like to be, they can smell that on you. They can smell it from a mile away. And that is not great. As they say, desperation reeks. You do not want to be desperate. You don't want to be perceived as someone that's a user or a taker. You want to be a giver. You want to be someone who gives energy to relationships. The first place to start is being genuine with how you talk to people and how you build rapport with people. Now, this is something we talked about last time, but it is so important, and that is the 3 keys to success in this program. That is honing your strategy, your story, and your state. As we've said before, your state is most important. So physically, how are you? Physically, what is going on with your world? Physically, I don't care what is happening. If you recently broke up with your significant other, if your dog just died, if you got some bad news, I don't care what's going on. If you get up, if you shake it out, if you let it loose, you will get yourself into a positive state. So I want to challenge you to do that right now. I want you to get up, and I want you to shake it loose. I want you to scream at the top of your lungs. Just go, yeah, just let it out, let it loose, let it go. Because what you're doing is you're releasing blood to your brain. You're releasing endorphins. You're getting yourself into a state conducive for retaining information. If you're just sitting there on a couch or in a chair in a slumped over position, your likelihood of retaining any of the information we talk about tonight is severely diminished. But if you come in standing up, moving around, getting your blood flowing, you are much more likely to retain this information. Have you ever found it difficult in a classroom setting to remember what your professor says if you've been sitting for 3 hours? That's why 3-hour lectures really struggle to work. They're not very effective because people are not moving around. Your brain needs blood to retain information. So get up, get moving, get out, get loose. Now, the second key is your story. What is the story you tell yourself for why you will or will not be successful? I promise you right now, you will achieve up to the goals that you set for yourself in life and no higher. So you might as well shoot for the stars and land on the moon than shoot for the moon and end up in nowhere. Because if you are not focused about where you want to be, or really having a big, hairy, crazy, audacious goal for yourself, what are you doing? Like, are you just saying to yourself, like, I'm cool with winding up short, with, settling down and just settling for everything in my life? If that's the case, this program's not for you. I can tell you that right now. This program is not for you if you're trying to settle. But if you're someone that wants to go for it, if you want to go big, if you want to go out there for the opportunities that you want to see in your life, this program is absolutely for you. Let this program be a springboard. Let your mentor be a Sherpa that's guiding you up this mountain of life and success and help you get to where you want to be. This is someone who wants to guide you, that wants to help you. They wouldn't have signed up for this program if they weren't interested in seeing you succeed. So I want to be very clear with you. What is the story for why you will be successful? Understand that, hone it, be prepared. In fact, I would challenge you to write this down. Write it on a piece of paper. It's more likely to stick in your mind if you write it on a piece of paper of where you want to be. Stick it up on your wall. Stick it up on your desk. Stick it up on your dresser. Stick it up on your mirror. Something that's going to remind you of where you want to be in 1 month, 3 months, 1 year from now. That will help you set the target of where you want to go. Because if you don't set these goals, you're going to be on a path that's got really no clear outcome of where you want to go. So the last part is your strategy. What are you going to do to set yourself apart? Now, when it comes to strategies, I'm a big believer in routines. When I say routines, I mean literally getting into a daily habit that you can practice regularly so then you can be better at a skill. We think about habits sometimes in a negative light because we think about people just being addicted to bad actions, but I believe that habits can also be attributed in a positive light as well. What is a positive habit you can get into to help you build more genuine relationships? I believe one thing you can do is to be intentional about having an informational interview every single week with a new person, with a new professional in your field. You can leverage LinkedIn. You could go to a professor's office hours. You could talk to a friend of yours whose parent works in the field that you're interested in working towards, or a family friend that you know works in the field that you're interested in working towards. If you set up one informational interview every single week, and by an informational interview, I want to be very clear. This is a conversation. This isn't an interview. You're not trying to get a job from this person. You're just trying to get knowledge about what this work is like. Set up one of those a week. I can promise you they're going to start making introductions for you. They're going to start helping you get to where you want to be. By the way, if your goals change over time, that's okay. That's totally okay. You can share with them how your goals have changed. They're going to want to keep helping you over time. I'll give you a perfect example of this. As an entrepreneur, I set goals all the time. I have a board of mentors. I literally have about 50 to 100 mentors that I send once every 3 months an update of what's going on with the business. Here's the thing though, I've pivoted this business many, many times. Now, initially when I first got started, I was thinking to myself like, oh, well, they're my mentors. Like, if I tell them that I pivoted, will they think I'm a total failure? Will they not want to help me anymore? What I found is that is absolutely not the case. They're always there to support me. Mentors that have been with me for 5+ years still give me guidance, still help make introductions, still help me out and support me as my mission has grown, as my goals have grown. That is the nature of mentoring relationships. That is the nature of relationships in general. You should keep your network up to date with what is going on in your world because they will want to see you succeed. But the key is that you ask them for something specific. When I meet with my mentors or when I send them an email, I ask for something very, very specific. I don't say, hey, if you know anybody in XYZ space, if you could introduce me, would love that. Why? Because it's not at the top of their mind. What I'll do is I'll physically go onto their LinkedIn profile, look at who they're connected with and say, hey, I noticed that you're connected with Jane Doe, John Doe, Shelby Doe, and Jenny Doe. I know that you may not be connected with all 4 of those people, but if you are connected with one of them, would you mind introducing me? Here's an email template that you could copy and paste to introduce me. Now I've made it extremely specific and easy for them to take an action step to help me out. And that is how you can continue to grow your relationships, your network, and build rapport with people. And just keep them in the loop of what's going on in your world. So I just want to be very clear. It's about building genuine relationships, and it's about when you're building those genuine relationships and then you're asking them for introductions or connecting with more people through those relationships, being very specific and making it as easy as possible for them to help you out. I really want to stress this. It's so important. Genuine networking. If you can take anything from this whole program, if it's genuine networking, and by genuine networking, I mean really listening, taking an active and keen interest in who you are speaking with, you are going to be set. You're going to be in a great position. Because at the end of the day, it's not your elevator pitch. It's not going to be anything about you that makes someone interested in you. It's going to be about your ability to listen to them. In fact, I can tell you multiple times where I didn't say a word in a conversation. I just nodded my head yes and asked questions about things that somebody else has said. And at the end of the conversation, whether that be 30 minutes or 60 minutes long, they said, man, Garrett, you are such a great conversationalist. Or, gosh, I feel like I just had such a great conversation with you. And the funniest thing about it is I didn't actually say a word. The point is this: people love to talk about themselves. Why? Because people are really interested in things that they're interested in. People wouldn't choose to spend that they have the time that they have on this earth in the way that they did unless they thought it was the most optimum way of spending their time. Therefore, things that interest them, things that they choose to spend their time on, are things that interest them and ultimately make you interesting to them because you've taken an interest in those actions and activities. I hope that makes sense. If you want to rewatch that, take that back 30 seconds because I think it's really important. People ultimately, at the end of the day, people care about themselves. People care about things that they are interested in because they've chosen to spend the time that they have on those tasks. So with that said, I'm excited to jump in to our guest speaker this evening. Really, the whole point of this workshop is about genuine networking. By the way, if you have not connected with me on LinkedIn, please do. I'll add you to our LinkedIn group where we discuss different topics, and just you can add different topics, ask any questions, and expand us to our entire Ambition in Motion network. Connect with me. I'll add you to the group. But yeah, I'm so excited to get started. Let's jump into our guest speaker this evening.
Hey everybody, welcome to our workshop. I'm so excited to dive into our topic for today. Our topic is how to network in a genuine way. So I think as a college student, you're going through your collegiate courses, you're thinking to yourself, great, I get a degree in marketing, I go off and become a marketing person. Oh, I get a degree in engineering. Okay, great. I go off and get a career in engineering or something like that. And I think we often think it's just this natural progression, just like things come to us. And in essentially what I'm here to tell you is one, that's not how it works. It's very relational. It's very much who you know. It's very much, how you make people feel. And sometimes it can be easy to get caught into this trap of being a transactional networker, someone who's like, hey, do you have a job for me? If you don't, I don't want to talk to you. But if you do, okay, let's get talking. Ultimately, it's how you make people feel when you're with them that can really be a big determinant as to whether or not, one, they'll be able to get you a job, but two, whether or not they can connect you with someone who can help you get you a job or whatever your next career path is. Fortunately, we've got a great guest with us here today. We got Emery Nolasco. She is in our executive mastermind group. She's also doing some great work. Emery, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So Emery, if you could just maybe share with our students a little bit of like who you are, what you do, and maybe a little of your story as to how you got to where you're at so far.
Yeah, so I'm Emery Nolasco. I am a mechanical engineer. I graduated from UC Merced. I work on ocean robotics, which is a long story on how to get there. I actually started out working on drones, and now I end up in the ocean. But it wasn't a straightforward path. And so I specialize in like fabrication and mechanical engineering.
That's cool. So I feel like, if you're an engineering student, or even if you're not an engineering student, I wasn't an engineering student, but I mean, working with drones, working with like ocean machines and, autonomous vehicles, those are so cool. Like, how do you get into that? I feel like there's a lot of competition. I feel like so many people would want to get into that if they even knew that was a career path option. How did you get into that?
So I think that's one of the like being exposed to it is one of a big question because I actually didn't know what an engineer was until I was like looking at colleges and I was getting on the campus and fortunately I got exposed to first robotics in high school because I wanted to be a graphics engineer. I wanted to be a graphics artist, and so I took a 3D modeling class and then ended up on the robotics team because they needed somebody to do CAD, which is computer aided design. And so I didn't know what an engineer was until I got into college or I got to the campus and was like, what do I need to do to work on robots? And they said mechanical engineering. And so that's how I got into the like engineering itself. How I got into my career, I did a lot of asking around actually because I used to take care of aquariums and at one point, I think aquarium is a great hobby because it involves the whole entire ecosystem. You're like terraforming this little location for these animals, and I kind of realized that the Earth is similar. It's a huge entire ecosystem, and if you don't know if the ocean is a big missing variable that we don't know, and so I really wanted to work on that. But being interested in robotics ended up having me work on drones. And so I asked people at Embari who are ROV pilots with remotely operated vehicles and autonomous vehicles, which is what I work on now, how do I get into this? And they said, well, your resume is great. You know a lot about robotics, but we need you to have some like ocean experience and ship time or something to that nature. And I was like, I don't know how to get into this. And so I like
Wait,
called
real quick, what is ocean experience or ship time? What does that even mean? Just spending more time on a ship?
spending more. So now that looking back and having interviewed people for my position, I think what they wanted to see was field experience because just because you may be a really good engineer or scientist or technician and or all that, but they want to know how you are when you're like crammed into a small room for with people for like 2 weeks at a time and being basically be on call for like 24/7. And so they want to know how you work, outside of your technical skill. And so, yeah, that's how I ended up, at the time, I was not really into doing ocean stuff. Like I was at the ocean's a big place. I don't really want to go into it. And then because of that, I ended up calling a bunch of colleges and asked them for like, can I be a technician, for a scientist, or can I do work on a boat? And then I ended up getting into diving, scuba diving because of that. There's a great citizen scientist program called Reef Check, which you just need like 20 dives underneath your belt and, learn your inverts and kelp. And so I did that. And then I also ended up on a volunteer position with that, counting abalone. And so that ended up being some of my ocean experience that got me from going to drones into working on sonars, and then from the sonars going to working at MBARI.
That's cool. So I think like a core tenet of your story, which is so powerful, like the topic today is how to network in a genuine way. And there's nothing more genuine than pure curiosity. Like it
Yeah.
seems like in your scenario, every story, every situation, every opportunity you created for yourself came from a level of curiosity and saying like, hey, I want to learn about this. I want to help. How can I get involved? And I think like for the students that are watching this right now, they can really hopefully take a lot of solace in just putting yourself out there. It's not just about them. I mean, sure, obviously you're getting compensated, but it's not just about, how much are they paying me? It's about what are you doing and like what interests you and why do you do it? So I guess maybe let me take a moment to ask the students a question. Post in the comment section. What are you genuinely curious about when it comes to your career path? Post in the comment section. I'd love to learn more. So, Emery, what has somebody done to convey that they're being genuine when meeting with you? So when it comes to like, I guess conveying like, hey, I genuinely care. Like I can even see within your story about just the curiosity. I would imagine there's a lot of students that maybe are doing the same thing that you did, where they are maybe reaching out to you or people at your company saying like, how do I get involved in this? How do I get into oceaneering? How do I get into autonomous vehicles? How do I get into this stuff? How do they convey that they're truly genuine when they're reaching out to you?
Mm, I think like when it's hard to say because I feel like every relationship is transactional, and I think maybe it's something that makes me think about how can they be more genuine. I think it's, yeah, just have it being curious, making the other person important and going like what you can learn from every conversation you have. And maybe the person that you're talking to, yeah, maybe you won't get a job from there, but they may know somebody who's maybe more along the lines of your interest.
I love that. And not only that, but what you're describing here is just this really powerful component of not asking for anything in return, just for somebody's time. I
Yeah.
think sometimes students will look at a scenario and be like, oh, well, unless they have the power to offer me a job, I don't want to meet with them. But it's like you never know who you're going to meet. You don't
Yeah.
necessarily know who they are, who they know, or what they're all about. And when it comes to you figuring out your career path, whether you're going to pursue engineering or business or anything, if you could come in with a genuine curiosity mindset and ask someone about their story, that can be one of the most powerful things for helping people or really helping you figure out what you want to do and helping people feel important because people love talking about themselves. People love their own
Yeah.
story. People love to share things that they're genuinely interested in and working on because if they weren't interested in it, they wouldn't be doing it. So
Yeah.
as a student, you can go into conversations looking to do an informational interview and looking to help people out. And that can be an incredibly powerful element to you as a student, getting the knowledge, the insight, and the connections you like to getting a career in that area. It's not like someone's just going to knock on your door one day and say, hey, are you looking for your dream job? Oh, well, I've got it right here on a silver platter. Here you go with a salary that's double what you were expecting to make. Doesn't
Yeah.
work like that.
No, and I think I've done several, like I've had several conversations of students just reaching out to me just for like advice or just being interested in what I do, like interested in what I do so that they can make a better decision on what they want to do. And see, that is just like just giving them information, which is fun. And then from there, I can go like from our conversation, I could connect you with somebody else.
So you made these transitions. Like I love your story of going from like drones to, getting certified in scuba diving to autonomous vehicles, but like how did each one of those opportunities come your way? Like how did you determine you wanted to make the switch, the transition? Did people introduce you? How did you get connected with the opportunities? Like what was the thing that happened?
Between which part? Sorry.
Any of the parts. Like I just like I'm genuinely curious, like how did you make the leap from one thing to the next thing? What made you decide that was the right time to make that leap? What made you decide like this was the right step for you? Like how did that process transition work?
I think like one thing that kind of worked in my favor was that I had an idea of what I wanted to do. I knew that I was interested in ocean robotics and knew that that was something that was important to me. So when it came to transitioning from like I used to work at a small drone company that was like they had great benefits, it was great culture, all of that. And I got this position, this like new position, and I just remember being on a phone call with my friend and they were like, you've always wanted to study the ocean, like at the end of the day. And so I had to turn down that kind of position that I had in that job and then transitioned over to like sonar. Um,
But okay, how did the offer come your way? Like who'd you meet? How did that work? Like were you formally interviewing? Like what happened?
yeah, I interviewed. I just put my resume out there. That was the hard way. I think the more interesting one interview that I've had was like when I worked at MBARE, they did it, and this was during the pandemic. Uh, they had a lot of they wanted to do more outreach on what types of jobs were in the like in ocean science. And so I went ahead and I volunteered or to be like a guest speaker. And that's actually how I got my position at this new job because he was like, well, my boss reached out to me and was like, you look like you know what you're doing in ocean robotics. Why don't you join our team?
Really? That is
Yeah.
so cool. And were you like just so caught off guard when that happened?
Yeah. Because it just seems like a very, I mean, I think when you work in a certain field and something that you do every day to day, it seems really easy to do. And so I just kind of valued it as a everyday thing, and somebody thought, so, found this opportunity for me, which is way further than I ever dreamed, right? Like the job that I had was good, but it didn't have all the aspects that I wanted because I from there I took inspiration that like scientists work really hard and it takes a lot of money to do ocean research. And so I was like looking for the next opportunity, but it didn't exist prior to that, that's another thing I think that when people are looking for what they want to do, I think networking and learning more about what's available in your network is probably really important because you may not even think about it.
That is so cool because that's so true. That is such a great point. I think so many new jobs, I can't remember what the stat was, but I think like 40% or maybe 20, I can't remember what the stat is. A good percentage of jobs that will exist in 5 years don't currently exist today.
Yeah.
And I don't know what percentage it is, but I know it's a decent. I remember seeing this, I was like stunned by it. But the point I'm getting to is that if you're a college student right now, you are about to embark on an incredible opportunity, a potential opportunity to work in areas and do things that don't even exist yet. And I just think that's a really cool place to be because as long as you're open to what opportunities may come your way, and you're around people that are doing that thing, you're much more likely to get there. I mean, I've heard the adage, you're the average of the five people you spend the most time with. And
Yeah.
if you're spending time with people who are doing oceaneering, more likely than not, people will share with you opportunities for oceaneering. Like more likely than not, you're not going to be like, well, I'm an accountant, but all of my friends are oceaneering. You know, what's more likely than not going to happen is you are going to learn of opportunities to do the thing that you want to do. So put yourself around other people that are doing that thing. And if you're not doing that, it's going to be really hard to identify those opportunities. They don't just drop out of the sky. They come from different cool scenarios. And another cool thing that you did was you were publicly speaking on the things that you were studying. That's so cool. So how did you get to that public speaking engagement? Like who approached you? What made you say yes? Like I would imagine you were probably pretty nervous about doing it, or maybe you weren't nervous. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's because you never know. You're talking to a wide audience, so you never know how to meet each person.
Yes.
Um, but I think during the time period, one, I work in engineering, which is a STEM field, which already has, as far as, women and diversity in this field, we need more of. And so I was kind of thinking of like one of the things um, that makes the job more relatable or for people to see themselves in it is to have somebody who looks similar to that. And I just thought that was a great opportunity because it would have been something that would have wanted to see when I was younger.
Yeah.
And so, even though if it was scary, I still, you should do things scared if it's
That's so
worth
cool.
it.
And yeah, and not only that, but also just like the power of being that role model for other people that they can see that it helps to have a paradigm for success. I mean, what was the like Roger Bannister was the first person to break the 4 minute mile, and then immediately after that, like 20 other people did within the next year. It's like when you see someone else doing the thing and you think to yourself, I can do that too, that can be such a powerful catalyst for people to take a step forward and actually go out and do something different, something unique, something that maybe they never dreamed of doing.
Yeah, and I think that's such like, one of the things that I've had friends who had their parents had a lot of family friends. And one of the cool things about that community was there's somebody who worked in the movie industry, somebody who worked in diving, somebody who worked in the art, music scene, live music scene. And I was thinking, reflecting to myself, and I was like, if I grew up knowing so many people who either worked in LA or all of those things, it'd be easier for me to see myself in that position.
Mm. You bring up such a great point. Like now that I'm hearkening back to my childhood and like
Yeah.
now as an adult, I know what a lot of like my family friends as parents or like what they did, like my parents as friends and stuff like that. Like growing up, I just knew them as like this person or that person or someone who I saw around this or there or whatever. But I didn't really know what they did or who they were or what they were all about. And so now as an adult, like I learn about it, I'm like, really? They take old pieces of metal and then resell it. For whatever reason, I
Yeah.
live on the south side of Chicago. There's a lot of people in my family friends that resell like junk metal and then repurpose it for God knows what. I don't even know what they do. I'm still figuring it all that out. But I'm like, how
Yeah.
can that be that lucrative a business? And it's like it's a huge like the metal refurbishing is a huge business that I had no idea, but I've got a ton of family friends that do that. But I guess the point I'm getting at is I'd love to ask the students a question here. Like, if you've got, tell me 5 adults that you know in your life and what they do professionally. Post in the comments section. I'd be genuinely curious to know. And if you don't know the answer to that question, what can you do to figure out what they do? Because it's like that's such an easy, warm space to start. Like, so often when it comes to genuinely networking, like we think to ourselves, oh, we got to go out cold and we got to go build these fresh relationships. But shoot, if you already have your parents have friends, or if you know people who are adults in your life that are doing different things, even if you don't even know what they do, reach out to them and ask them. It's kind of crazy. I mean, shoot, I know this is gonna sound silly, but I you know, I've got I had friends in high school when I would ask them like what their parents did, they had no idea. They're like, my dad goes to an office and he does something with tech, but I don't actually know what it is. And I think to myself, like, what a missed opportunity. I think as college students, if we can really dive deeper into what our parents do professionally, what their friends do, if we've got that sort of network we can tap into, that's can be such a door opener for potential opportunities. Because Emery, you're so right. That's if you can leverage the warm opportunities that are at your fingertips, you might as well grab them.
Yeah. I think another thing to like play off of that is I'm also thinking about, when we were talking about transactional things, sometimes if you're the one who's offering support, like this is one of my favorite things to do is to like learn people's lore or what their goals are in life and going like, how can I support you in making that happen? And from there, like I've had one of like here's a weird networking story that had happened to me. When I was in LA, I decided to learn how to fire dance. And from there, I became friends with the fire dancing instructor. And from there, I ended up at a fire dancing, like at a festival selling her props. And then from there, I ended up designing these like fire wings for her first that got performed in Sturgis and like the Oregon eclipse. And those are like great. We both benefited from it, but it all came from like us helping and supporting each other, doing what we want to do, right? I love building stuff and making people's costumes or things happen, and my friend liked performing. So
I
there
love
you
that. What you're conveying is just the power of just being there, like the power of being available. Like I think sometimes it's easy to think to ourselves like, oh, how did they land that opportunity, or how the heck did they get into that, or how in the world did they meet with this person who's doing that? And so often it's not out of random happenstance, it's just because they were there. Like it's so easy to be on our phone or be to ourselves or focus on our own social media or profile or whatever. It's hard to put yourself out there, and it takes time, energy, and effort to go and volunteer and help. Like, you likely weren't compensated for some of the work you were doing, helping out your friend with, selling the fire dancing equipment and materials and stuff like that. But like, you know what? You were there to help, and that opened up, doors for other opportunities for you to get involved as well. And it doesn't necessarily need to be financial. It can just be great experiences and opportunities that you had. And I just think there's just such a power, and it really, I mean, what you're really conveying is still, it goes all back to curiosity. Like you're really conveying that, like genuine curiosity and genuine just follow through without any expectation of anything in return except for just wanting to learn can be such a powerful tool for building relationships. Because yeah, that's something that I think gets lost sometimes when it comes to career paths and career pathing. Like you can, as a student, go out, apply for a job on some online portal, submit your resume, maybe someone gives you a call back, maybe you go through an interview and maybe you get a job. But if you want to be doing something that you really love, something that's truly unique, something that's like really hard to get into, it takes relationships. That's it. And it takes putting yourself out there, trying new things, and learning a lot about yourself and what you're trying to achieve to get that opportunity. Because if you are not putting yourself out there, if you're not networking, if you're not reaching out to people and not expecting anything in return except for genuine curiosity and asking for help to connect with other people in this space and area so you can learn more and continue to expand upon your curiosity, it's going to be really hard to actually stumble upon a really cool career path. And I think curiosity is like at the heart of all really cool career paths.
yeah, I agree.
I think it's like a bold statement. So I guess, how do you keep your network in touch? Like, how do you go about keeping those that like, you got the drone company, you're doing oceaneering, you got like autonomous vehicles. Like, how do you keep everybody that you've worked with in the past in touch as to what you're doing, in the loop as to, what you got cooking, and really in the loop of what you think could be cool next?
Yeah. Ooh, that one's a hard one. I thought you were gonna go with like the friends and relationship one, which I feel like I'm a lot better at.
Okay.
The professional career one, I would let you know, I would love to learn more about that just because um there are people like I feel like when I have a job, I have we have all of these connections, but once you leave, it's a bit harder because you don't have those same things that you're building on. You don't have like, hey, I'm trying to put an O-ring in. Can you help give me advice? Or like, do you have anything that I can help you with? Um, and those ones I have a little bit harder because usually I also move far away from those locations. When it comes to friends, I usually, or like even professional relationships, I usually make people important. If I want them to be important to me, I make them important. And so I'll write notes and I'll keep a calendar of special events. And so I try to make everybody, at least that I work with and people that I interact with, through work or networking, make them feel special. So even if I like have a call with somebody that I'm buying parts from, I'll make a note from a prior prior phone call and then bring it up the next time.
That's cool. I love that. I love that that just studiousness of interactions. I think that really does show that you care. Like if you can remember that. And some people have the natural ability just to remember whatever that person was going through and they don't need to write those notes down. Some people you need to write the notes down, but truly, if you can remember what was going on in someone else's world, you really will endear yourself to them. There's a
Yeah.
book called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, and one of the things he writes in his book, and it's like a 100-year-old book. It's really old, but it's really relevant. So students, if you're thinking about a book to read that book. That's actually how I landed my first internship. But long story short, one of the things he says is that the most important word in the entire world to an individual is their name. And if you can remember their name and other cool details about them, it shows that you care about who they are and what they're all about. And that's a really powerful thing.
Mhm.
So one thing that I do, well, I'm not as full transparency. I haven't been as good as doing this over time, but LinkedIn's really helpful with that in terms of just keeping a Rolodex of like all the people that are in your network, the people that are in your, purview of things that are going on. Um, Growing up, or rather, starting my business and being an entrepreneur during college and right immediately after college, one thing I learned about, and my company didn't end up fundraising, but one thing I learned about from other friends of mine who did end up fundraising was keeping your investors engaged and in the know about your business. And I thought, this is a great kind of exercise to do with your professional network too. Like this shouldn't just be for entrepreneurs trying to keep their investors engaged or in the know as to what's going on with their business. This could be something that students and young professionals can do, and any professional for that matter can do, to keep their network in the know as to what's going on with their career path and trajectory and like what they're working towards. And it's a simple like, hey John, I just wanted to give you an update as to something that's going on in my world. Here are the things that I'm working on. Here are the things that I'm working towards. Here's what I'm hoping to meet with more people that are in this area. Here are things that I've learned over the last, 90 days. I just wanted to keep you updated as to what's going on with me. And if by chance you may know anybody or have any insights as to how I can connect with people in this area, I would welcome any suggestions that you may have. But I did that especially during college, immediately right after college. Like I said, I've been bad a little bit lately, but I always thought that was such a cool thing to do to keep people in my network up to date as to what's going on and what I'm doing. But I find it to be really powerful. I mean, I guess I kind of do it through like LinkedIn updates, and I do posting and stuff on LinkedIn and that sort of thing. But yeah, I think that would be my one big tip is keep your network updated as to what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve and who you're trying to meet with, because you never know who they may know that may know someone who can help you get to the next level. And all you have to do is keep them in the know.
I really like that because I'm reflecting about how I've mentored people in the past and just how I'm reflecting about how I would have really liked to have like an email going like, hey, I'm working on this, I'm going to this school, because I do find out, later on, but yeah, that's a great point.
People appreciate that you took the time to keep them updated. It shows that you really had an impact on them, and it shows that like that you as the person giving them the update truly cared about keeping them updated. And they in turn will want to keep supporting you because they want to see you grow and succeed. Like there's this thing called the IKEA effect, meaning that people like things that they helped build versus things that they just could buy. Like you could buy a desk, but if you bought an IKEA desk, you have to put the metal bars together. You got to turn the screws into the thing and put the board on the thing. All the key pieces that go into making an IKEA desk. The point is that people tend to like those things more that they help build up. And I think that also includes people and their careers. It's like if I help mentor you, if I help guide you to a certain path or to a certain area, and then you keep me updated as to what's going on in your world, like I would run through a brick wall for you because you made me feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Like you made me feel good that I could be helpful and made me feel like I was helpful. And that's, I think, all we're looking for is just to feel like we had some form of importance in someone else's life. Like that's like I think the core of genuine networking is like feeling like you were useful to someone else and that helped them get to somewhere they wanted to go.
Mm-hmm. And I think another flip side to that too is something that I often reflect on in some of my relationships is when I interact with somebody, who does that bring out in me? And if I like that person, and is that something that I want to keep pursuing? And so, like, I have friends who are very artistic or very into hiking or rock climbing, and maybe I don't do that on my own. But when I'm with this person, I'm a better rock climber. I'm more willing to go hiking, or I'm more willing to go to these like cool like art exhibits. And I imagine that similar to, I think where the special sweet spot is like when the other person also finds something, likes themselves when they interact with you.
Oh, whoa, I like that. That's cool. Yeah, that's a great point. I've heard some students tell me before, like, oh man, when I reach out to a professional, like, well, what if I don't have anything to offer them? And what you are offering, what you're conveying, Emery, is the power of how they like themselves when they're with you.
Mhm.
And if you make them feel knowledgeable, if you make someone feel important, if you make them feel like their insight, their connections, their wisdom is valuable, that's one of the greatest gifts you can give anybody. And
Mhm.
I think as a college student, that's something that's super easy to give and super rewarding to any professional that you might be interacting with. So that's such a good point. I love that. Um, I'd love to ask the students a question. How do you keep your network engaged and updated as to what's going on with your life? Post in the comment section. If you don't do anything currently, post how you'd like to keep your network updated as to what you've got going on in your world and in your life. So Emery, last question. How do you continue to refine your networking skills and abilities?
I think this is kind of goes back to what I was saying about like what people bring out in me. Um, and like every time I interact with them, I see a better version of myself, or like get to pursue something that I wouldn't normally by myself do. Um, sorry. Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, I mean, the question was really like, what do you do to just refine your networking skills and just keep people just in the know, not only in the know, but also just like to help you, because I think it's easy to kind of rest on your laurels once you're in your career where you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I got this job, and then like, oh, I'm really bored with this job. I want to like find something else, and then you start networking again. But like, how do you keep an active network going even when you're in a good job that you're enjoying?
Mm, so I think, let's see, how do I keep my network going? Like, how do I keep them updated?
Yeah, or not even update, or just like, how do you continue to like? I feel like sometimes you ever meet those people where like I don't know. I maybe I see this a lot just because of the nature of
Yeah.
the work that I do, but like I'll chat with people, or rather, I'll meet with people and they like won't talk with me, won't engage with me, won't have a conversation with me, and then all of a sudden they get fired and like, oh my God, Gary, you're my best friend. Where have you been my whole life? I'm like, where have you been my whole life? I've hit you up like three, four, five times to see if we could re-engage, like reconnect, like catch up, see how things are going.
Yeah.
Haven't heard from you in years, and now like you're fired, and all of a sudden like you're looking for a job. It's like the point is like how can we go about keeping our network up engaged and just like just in tune with what's going on with who we are, what we're doing, even when we're not looking for a job.
I think what you said earlier, right? Keeping people updated, making events that where you guys can connect, either show them things like if you're able to showcase the projects that you're going on with like a coffee date, um, or talk, like those are ways that you can keep up with each other.
I love that. It just always goes back to the core thing, curiosity. Like at the end of the day, like having a coffee talk just to learn of what's going on. And I think being genuinely intrigued with what's going on with someone else is so powerful. That curiosity, I truly think, is the most powerful element to any element of anybody's career development and career path. Because when you've got curiosity, when you're learning from others that you genuinely care about, you are going to put yourself in a position to thrive and get opportunities that come your way that you didn't even realize were there. Yeah, I guess where I'm going with this is
Yeah.
it can be so easy to feel like I'm so busy with all the day-to-day things that I've got cooking and not take time to be curious. I think if we strategically prioritize curiosity and like make it a daily habit, whether it be to learn about from a person or from a book or from a podcast or from something, I think if we can take some intentional time for curiosity, we will always be in a position to not only network in a genuine way, but identify opportunities genuinely that come our way. And I don't know, I'm a big fan of curiosity.
Yeah, and I think so. One thing that I think while you were saying that is, I often learn your everyday interactions you learn from, right? From every person that you meet, you gain new perspective, people grow over time, so things change. And so, that's another thing that you can um speak to them. So another way to like I often will text people or message people when they remind me of something. And I have people who are on my team that, and when I say my team, it could be like my trainer, people who I rock climb with. Every time I'm doing that activity, I'll reach out to them and be like, hey, I'm doing the thing that we used to do, or like, here's an update on what it is, or I'm inspired by this, here's something that I saw that, reminded me of you. And because you're going to think like, if you have incorporated them into your life, you're going to remember them whenever you do that thing, right? Whether I got introduced by birding from a friend, and every time I go birding, I think of her. And
Oh
so,
man, that's so funny. I'm being super cheesy right now, but like as you say this, you're just like channeling your true Nickelback. This is how you remind me of what I really. I'm just being silly, but
yeah.
I'm a goofball. But no, I think it's a really powerful thing, and when you do that, it shows that you're thinking about them, and that shows that you care. And I think that's ultimately a really, really amazing thing to do.
Yeah, you're like a little piece, every time you interact with somebody, you're taking like a little piece of something that inspired you from them or something that you learned from them and adding them to I think of a decorator crabs because I'm into ocean stuff, but decorator crabs do that where they like take something they like and they put it
Oh,
on their shells.
I've seen videos of that on I don't know, maybe it was National Geographic, I don't know, but yes, that's so cool. Where like they're building these shells into really like decorative, like circular patterns and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Well, sweet. Well, Emery, this has been an awesome workshop. Thank you for being here. Students, thank you all for being here. I look forward to seeing you all in our next workshop. Emery, do you have any final tips or insights for our students before we log off?
Just have fun with it. I mean, I think the biggest thing is that people are interesting, you can't predict what people have. And everybody, I like to think of it as that everybody has their lore, everybody has a background story that has something that might be interesting to you. So think of it as like an interview of like, where have you gone in life? What experiences have you had? And I think that's something just like, yeah, again, back to what you were saying, Garrett, like be curious.
Yeah, and I love the part about having fun. Remove the expectations. Don't come in hoping that this person's going to give you something. Come in genuinely open to whatever the opportunities may flow your way and be grateful and appreciative of whatever does come your way. Even if it's not a job, even if it's an introduction, even if it's just a really great conversation, whatever it may be, come in, remove the expectation, just be appreciative of whatever there is. Cool. Well, Emery, thanks for being here. Students, thank you all for being here. I look forward to seeing you all in our next workshop.